And joining me now for our Wednesday panel is former New South Wales Treasurer Michael Costa and GXO Strategies Director Cameron Milner. Thank you so much for joining us. I do want to begin with the nuclear announcement. Michael, it feels as though a clear line in the sand has been drawn today by the coalition, finally. Is this a referendum on nuclear, in your view?
Well, I think that Peter Dutton should make it a referendum on nuclear. Look, I think this is, and I said this last week, is strategically very clever by the opposition. At least now we have a debate, energy versus cost of living, and really you can't, in the current climate, separate the two. One of the key factors for most people is cost of living on energy. And I might make the point that, Chris Bowen is probably the worst salesman ever to prosecute the case against nuclear energy. And most of what he just said in that lead-in was just absolute nonsense. He keeps confusing energy and power. I mean, it's true that solar energy is cheap at a particular point in the day, but it doesn't provide power 24/7, and that's the whole argument here. If you include the system costs in terms of the calculations, nuclear ends up being, as cost effective and more reliable than any of these renewable policies. And the problem for the government is that energy costs are going up, and it's going to be a hard argument for them to argue that somehow they're producing cheap power and the alternative's costly. So I think it's a really good move strategic move for Peter Dutton. I also think that he's playing the medium-term game. I don't think he's going to win the next election, but he certainly positions the coalition with an alternative, and one that I think the young people particularly will find very, very attractive. Look, if you don't support nuclear, all this nonsense about climate crisis proves to be just a political slogan. Really it's anti-capitalism rather than a solution to so-called climate crisis. And I think young people are the ones that he ought to be focusing on.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it is setting up the next generation and generations to come for better energy in this country. Cameron, you know the ins and outs of how Labor operate. No doubt they're going to get those scare campaigns ready. How do you think they'll tackle this? What sort of a campaign can we expect from Labor here?
Well, I'd like to start at the top saying Peter Dutton basically handed the Albanese government a lesson in leadership, because it's no longer a small target. We now have a real energy policy and a real choice for Australians. And I think the Australian Labor Party better take it seriously, because the smear and fear campaign, which will be rolled out by Paul Erickson and Albo and all of his other Instagram friends about how bad nuclear is, denies the facts that nuclear is safe and reliable. Safe and reliable. 36 countries around the world have nuclear power, and it's net zero. So net zero by 2050 is achievable either through wind and solar or nuclear. So if you want net zero by 2050, you've now got a choice. And I think it's great that Australians have got that choice, because Peter Dutton had the courage to do something strong and bold with energy policy and propose nuclear in 7 reliable sites that are already grid connected around Australia.
Absolutely. It was a bold proposal, something we haven't seen from an opposition like this before.